And because of that, I think that if Jurassic World was your first movie in the franchise, that would be a real shame. I am Logan T. Smith for Opinion Subject to Change, here to talk about Jurassic World. But first, this video is not sponsored by novelty keychains like this one. This happens to be a pterosaur. It can flap its wings. It's pretty neat. It also makes a terribly irritating noise. But you know, there's a lot of cool keychains out there, and a lot of them are big and things like this. And they're really too big to fit in your pocket, but you know what? That doesn't matter to a guy like me. So I gotta tell you right off the top that Jurassic Park is one of my favorite movies of all time. And so Jurassic World has a bit of an advantage because it's got that emotion connected behind it for me that I'm just gonna love some of it no matter what. But it also has the great disadvantage of being connected to Jurassic Park, which is one of the greatest movies of all time. And so Jurassic World has no chance of standing up to it and being as anywhere near as good as Jurassic Park, of course. Jurassic World takes place in the same world, of course, as Jurassic Park. In fact, in the very same place as Jurassic Park. In Jurassic Park. A lot later, and after the tragedies of Jurassic Park, they decided to try again. And this time they called it Jurassic World instead of Jurassic Park. And it actually worked. The park is successful. It's going, it's safe, people come and visit all the time, and everything is great. Of course, and then the movie happens, and so things don't stay great. There are some really good things about Jurassic World. There is one major element that is in Jurassic Park that just didn't make it into Jurassic World. Jurassic Park does this excellent job of giving you that sense of wonder when you come in. The very first shot where you actually see a dinosaur. The doctors and everybody are coming to the park and they're driving in the Jeep and they're crossing the plain and there's a brachiosaur. The way that they shot that, the music that's playing, the way that they show the people's reactions before showing the dinosaurs really gives this great sense of wonder, and this is an emotional moment. Now, Jurassic World, one of the sort of themes in it actually goes against that, and so they don't have a moment like that in Jurassic World. In fact, they talk about that nobody's impressed by dinosaurs anymore, which is really sad. It's a deliberate choice, I'm sure, to make you not feel that sense of wonder about the dinosaurs, but it really does take something away from the movie, I think. And because of that, I think that if Jurassic World was your first movie in the franchise, that would be a real shame. Jurassic Park is one that you really, really should watch. Jurassic Park from 1993 first, before you watch anything else. Now, the next two, you could take them or leave them. Jurassic World seems to completely ignore their existence anyways. Jurassic World, I do quite like it though, and there are some great things about it. Almost throughout the entire movie, it looks spectacular. The dinosaurs look amazing, the sets are great, the whole place looks and feels really, really good. And they do manage to give you some of that kind of feeling of the theme park that they've made. Jurassic World is really, it's a theme park now. It's not just a zoo for dinosaurs. There's rides and things like that. Also, the soundtrack here is really good. They've taken the motifs of Jurassic Park and put them in Jurassic World, changed them a little bit, and the soundtrack is really, really good. And of course, they really do have those surround effects going. If you have a surround sound system, it's really good. If you have a subwoofer, of course, they have the big dinosaurs thumping down on the ground when they stomp, and then they have, you know, the roars and stuff like that that really can bring that impact into your home if you're set up for it. So this is a cinema experience. If you're just watching this on a TV with no additional speakers or subwoofer or anything like that, you are going to miss out on some of the experience of this movie. I do recommend getting that sort of stuff if you can. There's a lot of cheap options out there these days. You know, as is common in these kinds of action-y movies, there are some significant plot holes and people making really bad, obviously bad decisions. One in particular that's just terrible, just sets off the whole events of the movie that they really shouldn't have done, and it's super obvious that they shouldn't have done it. And so it's a shame that they couldn't figure out some way to make the movie happen without that terrible error. This movie is somewhat more violent than the previous Jurassic Park movies, and that is saying something. Yes, it has some pretty significant violence in the others. There's just a lot more people around, and there's a lot more dinosaurs on screen and things like that. So there's just a lot more of that violence happening. The way the humans decide to treat the disaster is different. The way that the violence happens is different. There is some coarse language, more than I would like, of course, because I don't want any. There is a significant amount here. Definitely wouldn't want to watch with my little kids. As far as sexual content, there's very little. There's a little tiny bit of innuendo in there, but really not very much. There's one other sort of significant issue in the storytelling in this movie. There is an act of God. What that means is something happens that really couldn't have been predicted. It's not something that any of the characters in the movie did anything to make it happen. It just happens. That makes a significant impact. It is a pretty good movie. The climax is good, and it wraps quite quickly after the climax. So you sometimes have movies where you have the climax and then you're sitting around dilly-dallying for a long time. This movie has a little bit of wrap-up, but it's not terribly long after that climactic moment, and so you don't end up dragging your feet to the credits, which is good, of course. On the flip side, the introduction, I think, is a little bit long and drawn out. There is, some emotional stuff being developed and foundations being laid at the beginning of the movie, but I think they spend too long on it. There's a couple of little shots in particular, one that draws attention to how long it is, and it is too long. That scene is too long. I think it's supposed to be a joke, but it's not really that funny, and so it just sort of feels like a waste of time at the beginning of the movie. And so I think that there's a reasonable chance that if you were to be watching this, like if you're flicking through channels on TV, which I know is sort of an old idea, and you came across this, you might not stay watching it because it might just feel sort of too boring at the beginning. But if you do get through that, the movie picks up real nice, and it is, quite an exciting, beautifully shot, well put together movie that I quite like. I give it an 8 out of 10, and I think you should watch it. Thank you very much for watching this one. I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.